It happened on the night the party returned from the middle floor of the dungeon. The hunt had gone well. They had wiped out a group of lizardmen, collected the materials, and earned a good reward. Rain even thought he might report to the guild the next day, then have dinner with Rena. Rena was not just the party's healer, she was his childhood friend and his fiancée. Rain had grown up in an orphanage. To him, she was the one person who had always felt like home. They had promised as children that they would marry one day, and Rain had never forgotten it. But when he reached the second-floor hallway of the Silver Bell Inn, he stopped. Rena's door was slightly open. Light spilled through the gap. So did voices. Then he heard her laugh. It was a soft and sweet laugh. He had never heard her use that tone with him. A moment later, he heard the man with her. It was Zack, the party leader, the hero. Rain stood still and listened. Zack mocked him without shame. He called him dull, plain, and useless. He said, Rain only remained in the party because of Rena. He even laughed at Rain's magic and said nobody could tell what it actually did. Rena did not defend him. She gave weak replies, but in the end, she went along with it. Then Rain caught a brief look through the gap. Zack had one arm around Rena's waist. Her hand rested on his chest. Their faces were close. That alone told him enough. Rain quietly stepped back until his back touched the cold stone wall. Something heavier settled inside him. He returned to his room without making a sound. He sat in the dark and stared at the ceiling for hours. He could not stop hearing her voice. Morning came, but Rain had not rested at all. He washed his face and went downstairs like usual. When he entered the dining hall, Zack and Rena were already sitting together. Zack looked relaxed and full of confidence. Rena sat close beside him, smiling as if nothing had happened. Rain looked away and sat at the far end of the table. Then Zack called him over and said they needed to discuss something important. Rain noticed Rena lower her eyes. He also noticed Gald and Risa acting strange at another table. Both had stopped eating. Both were pretending not to watch. That told him enough. Everyone already knew. Only Rain had been left in the dark. Then Zack said it clearly. Rain was being removed from the party that same day. Rain calmly asked why. Zack said the party had no reason to keep carrying useless weight. He mocked Rain again and said Rain only stayed in the back, never attacked, never healed, and never did anything anyone could understand. In his eyes, Rain had been dead weight for 3 full years. But that was a lie. For those same 3 years, Rain had kept powerful support magic on the whole party. He constantly boosted the strength of the party members. He kept those enchantments active all day and all night. Even when he slept, he continued feeding magic into them. The problem was simple. Buff magic had no flashy look, no obvious sign. It simply made people stronger, and because of that, nobody noticed. Then Zack said Rain's presence only dragged down the mood, and the party would be better off without him. Rain looked at Rena and said her name. She hesitated. Then she finally agreed with Zack. She said rewards had been getting worse, and they could not afford to keep someone around when they could not even tell if he was helping. That was the moment everything ended. The girl who had once promised to stay by his side now spoke as if he were only a burden. He did not argue. Gald awkwardly tried to bring up Rain's share of the party money, but Rain refused it. It no longer meant anything to him. He stood up and left the dining hall without touching breakfast. He packed his room in silence. There was barely anything to take. One leather backpack, a small pouch of herbs used as magic catalysts. That was all he had after 3 years of adventuring. Most rewards had gone into the party's shared funds. Rain had rarely cared about his own share. He went to the Adventurers Guild and signed the withdrawal papers. The receptionist asked if he was sure. Rain only nodded. Then, he stepped outside and walked into the city with nowhere to go. Not long after Rain left, Zack was already celebrating. He drank mug after mug in the inn and laughed loudly. He said they had finally gotten rid of useless baggage. Rena stayed close to him now. There was no reason to hide anymore. She lightly said he could have been less harsh, but she did not challenge what he had done. Zack brushed it off and said he had only spoken the truth. Then he happily brought up the next step. He wanted to recruit a new member named Sylvie. She was a saint who used flashy light magic, and he believed she suited a top-ranked party far better. Rena liked the idea right away. Zack proudly declared that with Rain gone and a new member coming in, their rise to S rank was only a matter of time. Gald and Risa nodded, but both looked stiff. They still felt bad about how things ended, yet neither of them had the courage to go against Zack. None of them realized what had already happened. The moment Rain signed the withdrawal papers, the party contract ended, and the instant it ended, every enchantment Rain had maintained for the last 3 years vanished. The strength covering Zack's body disappeared. The invisible protection wrapped around Gald faded. The force supporting Risa's arrows was gone. The boost, strengthening Rena's healing magic, also vanished. All of it disappeared without a sound. Zack stood up, excited to enter the dungeon and prove how much better the party would be without Rain. As he moved, his body felt slightly heavier than usual. He ignored it. He thought maybe he had not slept well. He had no idea what had really disappeared. Rain left capital through the eastern gate. He just wanted to leave the city as fast as possible. Soon the road entered a forest. Beyond it were villages and other towns. He could probably find work somewhere, or maybe keep walking until he found a place that did not know his name. Right now, it made no difference. He had lost his fiancée and his companions. Zack's words kept returning. No one could even tell what his magic did. Rain wanted to reject that, But the painful truth was that even he had never fully known how strong his enchantment magic really was. He had learned it on his own in the orphanage. He had always believed it only gave small support, a little extra strength, nothing more. So deep down, part of him began to wonder if Zack had been right. Maybe he really had not mattered much. That thought finally stopped his steps. He noticed a smell. It was foul and heavy. The grass nearby had withered black. Purple marks spread over the tree trunks. Rain recognized it at once. Miasma. It was the sign of corrupted magic. Something dark and twisted was nearby. Then he heard it. A faint sound from deeper in the forest. Broken breathing, shallow and weak. Rain froze. He was no longer part of any party. This had nothing to do with him. He should have turned around. But before he could stop himself, he started walking toward the source of that sound. The deeper Rain went into the forest, the thicker the miasma became. Rain stayed fine, only because he had always kept abnormal status resistance on himself, but he did not know that. He only thought he was naturally resistant to miasma. Soon, he reached a small spring. The water was now black and murky with purple bubbles. Then he saw her. A silver-haired girl lay near the spring. Dark curse marks spread across her pale skin like living snakes. Each pulse of those marks made her breathing weaker. Rain knew at once that she was not human. Her skin, her hair, and the mana leaking from her body all felt different. She was likely a spirit, or something close to one. Her lips moved weakly, but no sound came out. If he left her there, she would die. Rain had no reason to help. She was not even human. Saving her would change nothing. But when her fingers twitched and the curse spread higher, he clicked his tongue and knelt beside her. He was not angry at her. He was annoyed at himself. He poured mana into her and gave her detoxification and recovery. White silver light poured from his hand. The light was far stronger than Rain realized. The dead grass, slowly, regained color. Even the miasma itself disappeared into the air. The curse marks on the girl's body cracked apart and vanished like dust. Rain did not know what he had just removed. That curse was an ancient, special-grade poison, the kind even top priests and sages could not purify. To Rain, it only felt like a slightly stronger detox spell. The girl's breathing steadied. Then she slowly opened her eyes. She looked at her body, realized the curse was gone, then stared at Rain and asked if he had done it. Rain said nothing. He turned and tried to leave, but she grabbed his sleeve. She introduced herself as Myra, a great spirit, guardian of the forest. Rain knew great spirits were close to legend. They were beings whose power could affect kingdoms. But right now, none of that mattered to him. Myra said she owed him a great debt and had to repay it by spirit law. Rain refused. She tried again. He refused again. Then he shook off her hand and started walking. A moment later, he heard stumbling footsteps behind him. Myra chased after him anyway. She could not believe he was ignoring a great spirit's life debt. Rain kept walking. Myra did not leave him. No matter how much Rain ignored her, she stayed 3 steps behind him. If he walked faster, she tried to keep up. If he never turned around, she still followed. Soon, her breathing became rough. The poison was gone, but the damage remained. Since spirits lived by absorbing mana from nature, she was in terrible condition. Even so, she refused to stop. By evening, Rain made camp in a shallow hollow. He gathered branches, lit a fire, and sat down with simple food. After hesitating for a while, Myra sat across from him and kept glancing his way. She asked for his name. Rain stayed silent. She asked again and again, saying she had already shared hers and needed a way to address him. At last, worn down by repetition, he answered. His name was Rain. She quietly repeated it, as if testing the sound. Then Rain lay down with his back to the fire. A loud growl came from the other side. Myra's stomach had rumbled. She tried to excuse it, but it was obvious she was starving. Rain sat up, took out extra dried meat and bread, and tossed them to her without a word. She stared at the food for a moment, then quickly started eating. She ate so fast that all her earlier dignity vanished. When she finished, she thanked him softly. Then, she explained spirit law. Spirits followed a law called the Covenant. If they received kindness, they had to repay it with equal value. But saving a spirit's life was different. That was the highest class of debt. A simple blessing was not enough to repay it. Under spirit law, there was only one proper answer. The spirit had to offer herself. Then, Myra said it clearly. She had to become his bride and devote herself to repaying him. The forest fell silent. Rain rejected it immediately. Myra was stunned. She argued that kings and nobles would beg for a chance like this. She said she would serve him for life, no matter what kind of man he was. Rain only repeated that he did not want it. Then she quietly wondered why he was refusing when she thought she was fairly cute. After a while, her expression changed. If he would not accept now, then she would make him fall for her first. One day, he would be the one asking her to become his bride. Rain gave no answer. The next morning, Rain opened his eyes and found Myra already sitting nearby with perfect posture. She greeted him cheerfully. Rain said nothing. He got up, washed his face at the stream, and looked at his reflection. He had not slept well. Most of that was because of what Myra had declared the night before. When he returned, she was crouched by the fire pit, struggling with the flint. Sparks flew everywhere except where they needed to go. She asked if the tool was broken. It was not. Her angle was just bad. Rain took it and lit the fire at once. Her eyes lit up at the sight. For a great spirit who had likely lived for centuries, she reacted with surprising innocence. She immediately asked if all adventurers could do that, and whether he could teach her. Rain ignored the questions and warmed the last of his bread. Without thinking, he tore it in half. He ate one piece. The other stayed on his lap. He did not even know why he had done it. Maybe it was an old habit from his party days. He had always divided food by the number of people present before taking his own share. Myra stared at the extra piece and carefully asked if she could have it. Rain tossed it onto her lap. She ate it right away. She was clearly still hungry, but she did not ask for more. She only thanked him. Then they started walking again. Just like before, she stayed 3 steps behind him. Along the road, she kept trying to talk. She asked if he was really an adventurer, whether he always traveled alone, and what kind of magic he used. When Rain refused to answer, she started sharing things about herself instead. She liked spring because the forest bloomed then. She still did not know her favorite food, but she liked the bread and dried meat he had given her. Around noon, they stopped by a stream to refill water. While Myra washed her face and hair, Rain sat near a tree and closed his eyes. Then she muttered that he was a very difficult man. Rain did not know how to react to that. He had already made his rejection clear, but to her, it only seemed like a challenge. That made no sense to him. He had already learned that people gave up easily. Rinna had given up on him. Gald and Risa had chosen silence over helping him. Yet this great spirit did not give up at all. While resting, Rain kept his awareness on the forest around them. Something had been bothering him for a while. There were too many signs of beasts and monsters. He had seen claw marks on trees and large tracks that did not belong to normal animals. If this many monster traces were here, then something had disturbed the balance. Myra was still talking nearby when the atmosphere suddenly changed. The birds fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Rain's body reacted before his thoughts did. Something heavy was coming. Then the bushes exploded apart. A giant gray monster stepped out. It was over 4 meters tall, an ogre, a B-rank monster. Rain had fought ogres before, but only with a fully buffed party. Alone, he had no real chance, and one should never have been this close to the road. The ogre's eyes locked onto Rain, then shifted toward Myra. Rain moved first and jumped between them. The ogre swung its club down. One hit would kill him. Rain barely dodged. He had never been a frontline fighter. He cast body enhancement on himself. It was the same spell he had always used on others. He had almost never cast it on himself before. Mana rushed through his body. Then he moved. He was far faster than he had ever imagined. He slipped past the ogre's next swing by a hair, but speed alone was not enough. The ogre attacked again. Rain jumped back and realized he was now standing right in front of Myra. She had not run. Instead,